Bullshit.
It's the No BS Marketing Show. I'm your host, Dave Mastovich. Our guest today is Schell. We're going to learn all about Schell Games in episode 2, but first, let's hit the bullseye. In 2007, Cheryl Bachelder became Popeyes Restaurant's 4th CEO in 7 years. Before she officially started as CEO, Bachelder attended a franchisee meeting and quickly saw a lack of trust among franchisees towards corporate management. She knew nothing would change until corporate leadership could demonstrate value to franchisees because the company needed to leverage their capital and expertise to turn Popeyes around. Bachelder boldly made franchisees' corporate leadership's primary customer. She conducted the first ever franchisee satisfaction survey and learned restaurant-level profitability is the metric that matters most to franchisees, but corporate wasn't even measuring it. She quickly changed that and began basing corporate success on franchisee success. Bachelder changed the corporate mindset and began tying corporate success to how the franchisees did their job. This transformational moment came when she presented the new strategic plan to franchisees, which included a percentage increase in franchisee fees to be used for a national branding campaign. So now she was in a negotiation. She boldly puts them as the primary customer of corporate leadership. She puts the strategic plan together, presents it to franchisees, and tells them we're going to take a higher percentage because we need to build a national brand. Franchisees said they'd agree to the higher percentage if the company would agree to invest $6 million more to increase the length of the advertising campaign by about 6 more weeks. Bachelder agreed to the request despite the fact that it would hurt Popeye's image on Wall Street because it would lower earnings. She made the right call because national advertising was the first critical step in driving Popeye's turnaround. Cheryl Bachelder practiced servant leadership, made franchisees the key target market, helping Popeyes hit the bullseye. The No BS Show is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/NoBS. Try a book like The Power of Habit, Why We Do What We Do in Life and Business by Charles Duhigg. You can download it for free today. Go to audibletrial.com/NoBS for your free audiobook. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Our guest today is Schell, who in episode 1 told us all about his background, starting at age 12 when he made his first computer game while actually doing it in stores in the mall, stores like JCPenney. He ended up getting involved in software engineering and artificial intelligence, went to get his undergrad, came out and worked at IBM, then took a job with Bell where they sent him to grad school and he learned about virtual reality, landed a job with Walt Disney. So think about that, folks. IBM, Bell, and Walt Disney as your 3 first jobs throughout the 90s. And he has talked about how he leveraged all the things he did throughout his life, including being a juggler. That taught him how to be on stage and how important that was. In college, he did radio. That ended up helping him in one of his jobs, and also the AI coding and virtual reality. He walked us through 3 mentors who have impacted his life. He spent 7 years at Disney, and now we're going to get to the fun stuff when he talks about Schell Games. So, Jesse, welcome to part 2 of your appearance on the No BS Marketing Show.
Glad to be here.
Let's talk then. At the tail end of episode 1, you gave us your biggest learning experience when you decided you had to start something because you went from IBM making a certain amount of money to 9 months teaching, and academia pays less. So you were getting side work to supplement the income, and you began growing a business, Schell Games. You found that you had a flat organization, and that was your desire, which I can relate completely to this because after being in the corporate world, I came out and wanted to make mass solutions where people would be empowered. And you said your learning experience was people still need structure, they still need organization, they still need motivation, and people need to know who is accountable, who's the lead on any project, and ultimately who's the boss. So you talked through that a little bit. Let's go back and talk even more about Schell Games as far as how it's doing now and maybe the first few years of the company.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Schell Games has been really exciting. I mean, it was not, This wasn't a situation where we had a grand vision about some particular technology and went and raised VC money, et cetera. This grew very organically. We've never taken a dime of investment. It's been completely bootstrapped all this time, based off of client work. And the whole idea was basically, well, take client work, try and make that profitable, and then try and invest the profits in your own IP, make your own games and get those out there and distribute them. This is a slower path because it means that you can't get too much done until you reach a particular size. But we've been slowly growing, and now we're over 100 folks, and that means that we can have sometimes teams of 10 plus on our own games. And it's exciting right now because we got in on virtual reality fairly early. When I started hearing that it was coming into the consumer marketplace here in the mid 20-teens, about 2-3 years ago, I started trying to urge people at the company to start focusing on it, and we started developing some games. And it's so far it's looking like that's been good because the time we've spent, and of course I've been able to bring all my VR experience from back in the 90s to bear, and not to mention I've been teaching VR classes at Carnegie Mellon for the last 14 years, so I've got something like 20 plus years of VR experience, and that's really poised us well right now. We have about half a dozen VR titles and augmented reality titles in the pipeline, and some of them are out now. And we'll see how all that does as a marketplace. But it has been interesting growing the organization over time.
We'll talk about it. I'm going to go right into the biggest thing that we focus on at Mass Solutions for our clients is that when it comes to messaging, we tell our clients and even ourselves that we have to understand both our why, our reason for being, and our customers' why, or reason for buying. And the answers to those two whys are often not exactly the same. So, for instance, at Mass Solutions, I started the company because while I was in senior management positions at large companies, one being a multi-billion-dollar company, and I would talk to friends who owned companies or who were in marketing positions and communications positions or sales positions at companies, and I wondered why they didn't have what I would refer to as real marketing. And I explored that, and it seemed like there was more BS going on than real marketing. And I said, why is it that only big companies can really do real marketing? So the why for our reason for being at Mass Solutions is to instill the capability of real marketing, no BS marketing for any size of company. But our customers' why is not that at all. Our customers' why is, I want to get results at the lowest price possible. So we had to meld that into our core message, and that is that we have bold solutions, no BS. So when we're talking to someone, I can explain to them why I passionately started this company and continue to stay with it and drive it. But I want to show them what's in it for them. And what's in it for them is we're not a commodity. If you're looking for somebody to just build a website, or if you're looking for somebody to just do one PR pitch, go with the commodity place. They might be a little bit less expensive and they might do a good job. They might not. But if you're looking for a partnership and if you're looking for someone who's going to challenge you and probably disagree with you quite a bit about your messaging and your marketing, but if you want someone that's going to find you bold solutions that will transform your marketing, your sales, your messaging without the BS, then that's us. So you have to answer those two whys to really answer a bigger question. And the bigger question is, what's the big idea? So for you and Schell Games, what's the big idea?
Yeah, so again, Schell Games started very organically and grew over time. When we started out, it was just sort of like, hey, it would be fun to sort of make games together. But over time, we had to get a little more formal about, well, what are we doing and why? So part of that meant kind of sitting down and figuring out, all right, we should put together a mission statement. That's a thing you should have. And our mission statement for quite some time has been that our mission is to create experiences we're proud of with people we like in order to make the world a better place. And that's worked well for us because that's certainly, those are all things that I like. We founded the company on the notion of, wouldn't it be cool if we could all make games together? Wouldn't that be fun? And in terms of our customers, of course, they want great things. So, and of course, you're only proud of things you make if they're really great. And then why are you doing it? And initially, we were all about create experiences we're proud of with people we like. And later, we added the business of making the world a better place when we started getting into educational games, which we did in a big way about 7 years ago. And it's at the point now where about half of what we do is educational. But we made the mission statement have that part about make the world a better place because we realized that certainly that's what educational games do. That's what they're designed to do. But more than that, that's what entertainment games are designed to do as well. And we've had a lot of success with this split of doing both entertainment and education together. So that's been very much our mission statement.
So that's the mission statement. So what's the big idea, though? Because the customer, they aren't really caring if you're proud of it, and they don't really care about the people you like, and probably don't even care about making the world a better place. So what is the pitch to the customer? What's the big idea that melds these two things? Your mission, which is awesome. I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
Then the customer that's buying, what's the hook for them?
They want great games.
Okay.
That's it. It's as simple as that. They want someone who can make games that are going to meet their needs and their purposes. Now, if we get into like what do they care about, certainly they want games that are going to be deeply engaging and entertaining. But then also they want these things to be on budget and on schedule. Right? So that's when working with clients, that's what our focus is.
So you have that client. Let's talk about that. Mm-hmm. They want you to be on budget, on schedule. Then the ultimate client is someone else, though, right? Your client buys the game to get it to someone else. So talk about that a little bit, because that's got to be interesting, because you have that one target market that wants it on budget, on time. They want great games. And then the people that buy from them really are your customer too.
Yes. No, that's right. And so what that means is for games in particular, playtesting is absolutely crucial because we as developers, we have instincts about what's going to make for good product. And your client, they're going to have instincts about what makes for good product. But if people don't actually like it and they're not really engaged with it and it's not really meeting its needs, then you're nowhere. And so playtesting is something we do. We playtest early and often. We have this whole set of Schell Games principles, and one of them is playtest as often as possible. It's the only way to know.
So talk about how you do that. Do you go out and recruit people to play it?
It's different for different games. We do everything from like to span our. Just to be clear, we've probably produced somewhere between 30 and 40 games. I should probably go and count. And at any given time, we're working on about a dozen games at a time. And we've done everything from games for 2 to 5-year-old children for the Fred Rogers Company, working with the Daniel Tiger franchise. If anybody's ever played the Daniel Tiger games, you probably played one of our games. And to things like the virtual reality spy game called I Expect You to Die, right? So we have a wide variety of audiences, and you test for different audiences in very different ways. In the case of the Daniel Tiger games, we have a relationship with the Children's Museum. And while we work on the games, once a week, we take the build over to the Children's Museum and play test with the kids, play test with the parents, and see how the kids interact with it and see how the parents receive it. In the case of I Expect You to Die, we have a mailing list of people that we think are probably in the demographic. We bring them into our place, and we have a whole system for testing with that. We basically develop different playtesting strategies custom for different games because we do a huge variety. We do everything from mobile games to VR games to interactive theme park attractions to interactive museum experiences to interactive toys. So different things need to be tested differently, and it's a big part of it.
The No BS Marketing Podcast with Dave Mastovich is brought to you by Mass Solutions. Put our 3-step No BS process to work for you. Visit masssolutions.biz today to take your marketing to another level. It's all about bold solutions, no BS.
We talk a lot about marketing intel as a company because we try to explain to customers what you intuitively know, and that is that playtesting, whether it's playtesting or mystery shopping or customer surveys or any of that type of marketing intel, it gets you the type of information to give them what they want. So let's take the example of when during the build, you're at the Children's Museum and you see, can you just give us a little tidbit of in the past, maybe when you actually observed something going on, you said, we kind of need to change the game slightly based on what these kids are doing.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Because one of the things, and I think this goes back to my performer days. I remember when I first started doing playtesting at Disney, what I noticed is that most people who develop games, when you do a play test, you bring people in, they're playing the game. Most developers look at the screen and they're watching what's happening on the screen because they want to see what's happening in the game. And I found that when I was observing play tests, I tended not to look at the screen. I would be looking at the faces of the guests. And I started wondering why am I doing it differently? And I realized it was from my background doing these shows and these street performances. Because in a street performance, you don't get paid from tickets at the door. You get paid at the end of the show. If people don't like the show and walk out in the middle, you don't eat that night, right? So you learn to watch the audience and what do they like and what do they not like, and you tune your show for optimizing that. And so I realized I'd spent years kind of watching people and learning to read and feel audiences, and that during play tests that I could do that same thing, and that anybody can learn to do that, but you have to practice. So it's very much about watching and listening. So with Daniel Tiger, for example, the games that we initially created were all website games. So of course they're going to work with the mouse. That's how you do it, mouse, and you click around. Well, 2 to 5-year-olds, which is the audience, they are not good at using the mouse. It's way too big for them. It's a challenging thing for them to use. The older kids can kind of do it and it's okay, but a 2-year-old, good Lord, they have a hard time. You put a 2-year-old at a kind of a computer keyboard with a keyboard and mouse, and we noticed that the younger kids in particular would start to hammer on the keys of the keyboard. And not really with any goal, but like those are buttons. They look fun to touch. And that's one of the ways that younger kids approach the world. What would be fun to touch right now? What would be engaging to touch? And a keyboard's super fun to touch. And 99% of web games, when you touch the keyboard, they do nothing, or they do nothing interesting. And we saw kids again and again reaching for the keyboard. We're like, why don't we just make it do things? So we made one of our rules that every game, the keys on the keyboard would do things in the game, sometimes semi-random things, but they would make things happen on the screen. And this ended up having 2 benefits. One is young kids get hammer on the keyboard and stuff would happen, and it was cute and fun. And the other, it allowed for sort of 2-player play. If you sit down and you've got like a 2-year-old and you've got a 4-year-old, the 4-year-old might use the mouse and kind of click around intentionally, and the 2-year-old can participate at the same time doing other certain things in the game. But like, it's the sort of thing, unless you watch and observe what people are trying to do, you can't possibly deliver them what they actually want and need.
Now, here's the thing. That's awesome. And it's truly all about the focus of marketing. It's one of the major pieces of marketing, is that marketing intel and adapting to the customer. And I'm amazed at how few companies implement this kind of stuff. Like, we'll do mystery shopping, we'll do customer intel where we talk to the customer, we'll go and actually watch customers. And it's a really hard sell for us when we're talking to clients. And it's just great to hear someone that's lived that and used it and leveraged it so you can meet the customer need, because a lot of our listeners probably don't do that. And when we go out and we pitch these types of things under the guise of marketing intel, we get people kind of scratching their heads sometimes.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I remember when I did my handful of business classes and I took a class in marketing, I thought, this is gonna be lame. A class in advertising, who cares? And the professor the first day, he's like, let me dispel any thoughts that if you think that marketing is all about advertising, you've got the wrong end of the stick. And I'm like, wait, well, then what is marketing? And as we talked through it, I'm like, oh my God, he's not talking about marketing. He's talking about product design. This is like 50% about product design. And this notion that was kind of eye-opening for me, that there's this sort of continuum between the notion of what is the product you're creating and then how do you present it and get it to people is all part of the same package, which, again, coming from a theatrical background, of course it is, right? The script of your show and the way you present it on stage and the way you kind of put up a poster about it, those are all connected. They all have to make sense. And so one of our Schell Games things regarding playtesting, we have a rule that we call the 50% rule. All key features must be in place 50% through the schedule so that you can spend the other 50% testing them and marketing and testing them along the way, so that you you've got the right product.
That's Jesse Schell, CEO of Schell Games, and telling you how he's done it as a leader and how his team has done it. Really impressive. So, Jesse, talk about the games that, give us some examples of games for someone that maybe hasn't heard of Schell Games, and they might know a game but didn't know it was Schell Games, or maybe they just aren't that involved in games at this point. Maybe pick three different ones and just talk about a little bit of story about how it came about and how it helps people.
Yeah, sure. So one game that some people may know, I'd mentioned when I was at Disney, I worked on Toontown Online, which was the first massively multiplayer game for kids. One of the projects we initiated from Schell Games was another Disney game called Pixie Hollow, which was the first massively multiplayer game for girls. And this was based on the Tinkerbell franchise. And the whole idea was you could create your own fairy who would live in Pixie Hollow and have a very social online game with friends. And so that was one that we'd created and that had pretty wide exposure. Two others that I'll talk about right now. One is a game called Happy Atoms, which is, I'd mentioned we do educational games. This was a game that we'd applied for and received a grant from the Department of Education about. And the idea comes from something I sort of came up with in my basement probably five years ago. I'd always been frustrated with chemistry education because we teach chemistry as if it's very abstract. We teach it with kind of algebraic equations and such, and it's very daunting to people, all these formulas and things, when really it's the most concrete thing. It's all about the atoms snapping together like little Lego blocks. And I just kept thinking, why doesn't someone build the Lego blocks as they actually are and give them to the children, and everyone will understand chemistry? We've always had those little balls and sticks, but they have no rules. You can build anything regardless of whether nature allows it or not. And so we made prototypes using magnets and pieces of rubber that showed how that actually snapped together the way nature really does it. And it's cool because even a young child can snap these together and make real molecules. The problem is they don't know what they've made. And that's where we bring in the technology. You take out your phone or your iPad and you use the app and you point the camera at it. It does a visual analysis and it says, hey, you've made benzene. Here are the properties of benzene. Wow. And we can identify something like 17,000 different molecules. And so that's an example of a product that we made.
Well, tell me about that product and how it's been applied to help students specifically. Are there any schools that you've talked to that are using it?
So this product is right on the edge of coming out, although it's been in development for quite some time now. It's going to be coming out in late November, early December. And already we've been testing it. We've certainly been testing it in schools and with schools, but also with homes. One of the sad tragedies of the modern day is as much as making digital educational games is theoretically helpful to schools, it isn't something they want to pay for. Even though the teachers say, wow, we really value this, this is really great. It's a really tough business because the relationship between sales and the way you have to sell into each district is incredibly difficult. And so you don't see a lot of success stories of people getting rich off selling games to schools. So we've been taking an approach that is, yes, we're going to make this and sell this to schools, but our main focus is going to be selling this to consumers. So we teamed up with a company called Thames and Cosmos, which is the world's largest leading producer of science kits. And we'll be selling it into the retail channel, the way chemistry sets and science kits are sold, but also to schools. We're finding a good synergy between making products that schools like and can work in the consumer space.
Excellent. So then the third particular product that you would talk about would be which one?
Oh, I'd probably talk about our game, I Expect You to Die, which is our kind of our big premiere virtual reality game that is coming out in December on both the Oculus Rift and the PlayStation VR. This was the first VR title that we started working on at Schell Games. The premise of it is if you've ever heard of escape rooms, which have become kind of a popular fad, where you go and they put you in a sort of a puzzle room and you have to escape. It's kind of a virtual reality escape room, and it's themed kind of like a James Bond style adventure. There's always that moment in those movies, or happens to superheroes all the time too, where the villain ties you to a chair and you're in a death trap and you've got to kind of MacGyver your way out. No one's ever made a game about that. And so that's what I expect you to die is you're in a series of death traps and you have to use your cleverness and you have to use the objects around you in the room in this virtual reality setting in order to escape. But of course, in the act of doing so, you'll make a lot of mistakes and you'll find many creative and unusual ways to perish.
Jesse Schell of Schell Games and also a Carnegie Mellon professor. Great stuff, talking about 3 different games that all live their mission of creating great games that have a purpose and working with people they like and making the world a better place. That kind of touches on his mission statement to some degree. So Jesse, pick a tool that will help our audience in their productivity aspect. It could be about messaging, could be about how they tell their story, it could be how they plan their day, whatever you think, your favorite book, blog, productivity resource, whatever you think might help our listeners.
Wow. I mean, I'm very big into productivity. I'm gonna hit you with two real quick. One of them is sleep tracking. This changed my life in a major way. A lot of people talk about digital sleep trackers and all that kind of thing, but you don't need any of that. I didn't understand how sleep worked for a long time. I had thought that if you got a good night's sleep one night, you'd be fine the next day, and that was that. But your body collects this sleep debt, and it's an incredibly mathematical thing. There's a certain amount of sleep you need each night, and if you miss it one night, if you're 2 hours behind, now you're 2 hours in debt, and if you miss it again, now you're 4 hours in debt and 6 hours in debt. And when you're in debt a certain amount, your brain just doesn't function right and function well. And once I started understanding that it wasn't just how I slept last night, but what is my total sleep debt over the past 3 to 4 weeks, and I started tracking that, I was able to be much more predictive about how much I could get done in a day. And it made me plan ahead better because for my sleep, and that really changed things.
And how did you do it? You just did it writing it down, or did you have an app?
What I did is I got myself to sort of zero sleep debt by during a Christmas vacation, just sleeping as long as I could until I didn't need sleep anymore. And I found that I need 7.5 hours a night. And then so I started tracking every night how far am I behind my 7.5 hour debt each night. And I could see, am I 2 hours in the hole, 6 hours in the hole, 10 hours in the hole? And I could observe that when I'm 10 hours in the hole, I can totally feel it during the day. And it's really bad. And it means that night I'm going to be super tired. And so just tracking now, I don't track it anymore with a pencil because I can do it in my head now. But I did that for about 6 months and it just totally changed my relationship.
So you got 10 hours, let's say we get 10 hours behind.
Yeah.
Legitimately, how do you get caught up? Because you're going to sleep 13 hours one night, or
no? What'll happen is you'll catch it up over several days. Different people need a different amount every night. Some people need 7, some people need 8. I find myself somewhere around 7.5 usually. If you're 10 hours behind, what that means is you need to get 2 extra hours of sleep 5 times, and you'll be caught up. Right. And, a lot of people have had that experience while they go on vacation. It's like, my God, I'm sleeping 9-10 hours every night. And they get the idea that, wow, I guess if I could, I'd sleep that much all the time. But keep doing it and you'll watch it doesn't. You'll eat up the debt. And finally, you can't sleep 9-10 hours anymore. That's just not normal. And once you've eaten up the debt, you'll find that after 7.5 hours, you're ready to wake up and ready to go. And anyway, so that was a huge change. For me, it's made me put me much more in control of my alertness. I'm a largely decaffeinated person at this point because caffeine, is something you use to get over your tiredness, and if you're not tired, you don't need it.
So that's one tool. You said you had 2.
Oh, and the other one I'd mention is the book The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni. I know a lot of people talk about his 5 dysfunctions of a team, but my favorite book that he's done is The Advantage. And the whole premise of the book is that the most important advantage any company can have is clear and healthy communication through the company. And he gives very practical, hands-on ways to get that healthy communication done. And it really changed the way I communicated and encouraged communication within my company.
Awesome. Helping us out there by talking about how important communication is. Wish more people understood it the way you do, and you use marketing intel in your development. It's all great stuff. That's Jesse Schell of Schell Games and Carnegie Mellon University. Jesse, thanks for being on the show.
Sure thing.
For our listeners, thanks for joining us for the No BS Marketing Show. Visit masssolutions.biz/bold solutions for show notes plus additional marketing and messaging resources and all of the past podcasts. Sign up for light reading. You'll receive valuable strategies every other week to improve your marketing and transform your message. It really is light, intended to be read in 2 minutes or less, and it just might trigger bright ideas for you. To sign up again, visit masssolutions.biz, scroll to the light reading box, and enter your email. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea, and build your story around the answer. It's all about bold solutions.